welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 176 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 32 of A Storm of Swords. That's Tyrion 4.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully, we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing just fine. I'm a single dad for the past couple days.
Oh, she's
Stacey,
finally up and left.
Yes, finally got tired of my shtick, and she's hightailed it out. Surprised it's taken 23 years for her to get up the gumption. Stacey's actually in training in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the high today was 3 degrees.
Ooh, chilly. Ooh,
yes.
Chilly. That's 3 Fahrenheit, European listeners. That's very cold.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me of that.
You always forget.
I do always forget. And I had our windows open today. It was like 60 degrees something Fahrenheit. So, but I did a thing. I don't know if I told you about the thing that I did.
Do tell me.
I went full remote work at work. I gave up my office.
I think you told me that was going to happen. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll never see you again, will I?
Well, so Stacey and I went and cleaned out my office this past weekend, just because I wanted to do it on the weekend, so I wasn't walking out the hallway, walking down the hallways with boxes of stuff. People think I got canned or something, so I did it when nobody was around in the secrecy. It was weird, I haven't really used that office much in the 3 years since the beginning of the pandemic, but it was weird and sad to leave it. As I was cleaning out my desk, I found all these like little handwritten notes from Molly from like 8 years ago, and even from little Ethan, because when I started at our company, Ethan was still in elementary school. So, it was kind of surreal and sad, but I'll give it to someone else who might use it more than I do.
Do you think you and I are in different buildings, or I guess we were in different buildings? Do you think you might not have made that same decision?
I think I was always destined to make that decision when it was offered. But I did take Stacey into your building because your building's very pretty on the inside.
Yeah.
And she had never been in there.
You see, mid-pandemic, I moved into that pretty building, and now I'm kind of liking it. Now I'm going in more often than not. I'm quite enjoying it, being back there.
Yeah.
Keeping people at arm's length at the same time.
Right. So, you see, I have the word comment and question mark. I assume you know what I'm referencing there.
There's a comet in the sky, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you going to seek it out?
The first night I tried to seek it out, I was misunderstanding where it was in the sky, and I can't see it from my backyard because of my neighbour's tree. So I need to go somewhere else. But since that night, it's not been good weather for it. So I'm gonna make sure I see it, but I haven't seen it yet.
I think tonight is a decently clear night.
But you know what, Mackelly?
We're doing this.
You know what the problem is? I'm here with you.
Right. Well, I was thinking, what we need to do? We need to do like we did before. Go to that field in the middle school near my house.
Yeah.
Set up your telescope, and we'll look at it together.
That's perfect. Let's do that. The next clear night, let's do it.
Okay.
I'll ping you.
All right. What do you got? How are you doing? What are you up to?
I don't have much. It's been a dull kind of week. My sister, who is married to my brother-in-law, not entirely surprisingly, the brother-in-law who climbed the fence to pee.
Right. Yes.
That brother-in-law. that
brother-in-law.
sister. She wants to know what episode that was in because she wants to listen to it.
All right, listeners, let us know.
Yeah, it kind of cracked me up that she was asking for that. But I listened to a few episodes to try and find it, but I couldn't remember where it was. So
I don't, off the top of my head, know. I'm hoping some listener has, well, I guess if they stumbled across it just recently, it will be a while before they get to this one. Unless they're really ripping through episodes. We'll have to wait for it. There's a Discord channel on our Discord server for GOH quotes. So maybe it'll end up on there and we'll know.
Yes, I've been really enjoying that because they often...
Me too.
I mean, I see them in writing and I'm like, I have no recall of that at all. Like the High Valyrian for pineapple. I was like, what is that about?
That one I remembered because we were talking about Jakaris.
Yes, that's exactly right. But I had to go and listen to it again to find out what it was about.
Yes, it was a really good idea by Kebby Lebby to create that channel.
So my other story from this week is really not. It's really mundane, but it kind of cracked me up because Carson. I'm not slovenly, but I'm clumsy. I am clumsy for sure. If I've got something in my hand, if I've got two things in my hands, I'm going to drop one of them.
Okay.
Definitely.
Right.
Carson was coming home from work. I think it was last Wednesday. It was raining torrentially when she was leaving her work, and she had some important papers that she had to fill in. She's going through this accreditation at the school, and she has to fill in. It's all sort of legal things. They're checking on her back. It's all background checks. So she had to be careful with these papers. So she put them against her chest and put her coat over it and ran to the car. And then the drive home. It's a mile. I mean, it's 1 mile from our house where she works, but it was just long enough to forget what she'd done. So when she got home, she opened the door of the car, stood up, and dropped all of these papers, which she had so carefully avoided getting a single drop of rain onto, into a torrent of water that was rolling down our driveway. They were all absolutely soaked. I was like, oh, well played.
Was it your fault?
It was your fault, actually. She talked to Stacey.
Oh no! Well, I hope she was able to recover from that.
Yeah, there was some use of clothes pegs to dry them out.
Right. Well, we do have a rather Tyrion chapters, especially any chapter in King's Landing, tends to hit hard with the information.
So let's get down to business, shall we?
We shall.
How did we leave Tyrion Lannister? So last we saw of Tyrion, he was attending a small council meeting. He was sizing up the new players in town and learning the latest news of the city, realm, and within his own family. Some of the highlights included the reformation of the Lannister army in Lannisport, Littlefinger leaving for the Vale to woo Lysa Arryn and bring her and her army to the Lannister side, and the divvying up of the spoils of war. When the meeting broke up and only the Lannister family remained, Tywin announced impending nuptials for Tyrion and Cersei, not to each other, although with the Lannisters, you can't put it past them.
Yeah, you gotta clarify.
Cersei will wed a suitor yet to be determined, but the leading candidate was Willas Tyrell. Tywin had a much more specific match for Tyrion. He'll wed none other than Sansa Stark. Since then, through a Sansa chapter, we know that wedding has happened.
And is not the happiest of marriages.
Not the happiest, not the worst.
Not the worst. Not exactly paradise on Earth either.
So, Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
I think we can do that. Tyrion, accompanied by Bronn, surveys the harbor and walls outside King's Landing. It's all been destroyed from the battle. The cost of repair will be ruinous, but can't be avoided. The realm relies on this port. Tyrion figures it was him who burned most of it, so it's only fair he be the one to lead the rebuilding.
It wasn't supposed to be Tyrion who led this endeavour. His uncle Kevin was given the task. However, with his eldest son Lancel struggling to recover from his wounds, coupled with the news of his son Willem being killed while in Stark custody, and Willem's twin Martin still a captive of Robb Stark, Kevin's grief is too great to focus on such business as rebuilding effort, so Tywin has turned to Tyrion.
Tyrion can't help but hold the mess he's in against Littlefinger. He sailed off to bed Lysa Arryn and rule the Vale alongside her. Meanwhile, Tyrion is stuck figuring out how to pay for everything here in King's Landing. It's not just the reconstruction costs that have Tyrion in a foul mood. His marriage has an equal part to play.
He has still not consummated his marriage with Sansa Stark, and somehow half the castle is aware of that fact. What he can't figure out is if Sansa spilled the beans to her bedmaids, who all work for Cersei, or if Varys' little birds have been busy. Not that it matters, his wife hates him all the same, and nothing he can do will change that.
One thing Tyrion is sure of is that he wants her. Not just for her claim to Winterfell. He wants her in all the ways, to comfort her, laugh with her, hear her joys and sorrows, and to have her lust. However, he figures he has about as much of a chance of that as being as tall as Jaime and as strong as the mountain.
As for Shea, she seems unconcerned about the marriage. When he told her of his father's wedding plans, she'd already known, having heard through the rumour mill. She doesn't care. Sansa's a little girl. He'll get her pregnant and return to Shea. Tyrion had hoped for a little more fuss from her.
After inspecting the damages, Bronn and Tyrion make their way through the streets of King's Landing to a wine sink in a rather run-down section of town. There, Tyrion finds Symon Silver Tongue. Tyrion suggests Symon take his singing on the road to Essos, specifically all 9 free cities. Symon wants Tyrion to hear him sing first. He begins a song about a rich man with golden hands who lives on a hill and that secretly loves a common woman. A song Tyrion is not fond of.
You know, me and my namesake have almost nothing in common. I mean, he's musical, and he's stupid as well. Symon tells Tyrion he's going to sing the night of the king's wedding. If Tyrion can get him a spot in the singing competition during the wedding festivities, he'll sing his old, well-known songs. However, if he's not part of the royal wedding, he'll try out the new material in a wine sink. Tyrion tells him that Bronn will call on him soon.
Outside the wine sink, that is, Tyrion tells Bronn to call on Symon in 3 days with news of his spot in the festivities. How nice. However, Bronn is to make sure Symon's body or body parts are never found. Bronn knows the perfect bowl of brown and flea bottom for Symon.
Uh-oh. No, thank you, I don't. Upon returning to the Red Keep, Tyrion learns that his father has summoned him to the Tower of the Hand. Tyrion enters his father's chambers to discover Tywin talking with an armourer and inspecting a sword. It's a Valyrian steel sword meant for Joffrey as a wedding gift, to rival the rumoured flaming sword of Stannis. The sword has a larger but less ornate counterpart on the table. That one's meant for Jaime.
When the armourer leaves, Tyrion gives a report of the damages he's inspected and his inability to pay for the repairs, with payments still ongoing for the wildfire and the chain, and the ever-growing cost of the royal wedding. Tyrion suggests cutting back on the extravagance of the wedding, but Tywin feels it's important to show the family's wealth. Tywin makes it clear that if Tyrion can't find a way to pay for it all, he'll find someone who can. Tyrion assures his father he'll find the coin.
Tywin changes the subject to Tyrion's marriage. He wants the marriage consummated, and soon. Tyrion argues that Sansa is too young, but his father is unconcerned. She's old enough to be the Lady of Winterfell when her brother is dead. If Tyrion gets her with child, Winterfell is basically his. Tyrion asks about Cersei's betrothal to Willas Tyrell. Seems Mace Tyrell rejected the idea on the grounds that Cersei is too old and used. Tywin blames Olenna Tyrell for the rejection.
Grand Maester Pycelle arrives with a letter from the Night's Watch with a plea for men. Castle Black has received a letter from Lord Commander Jeor Mormont that the Ranging was attacked and he fears that the Lord Commander might be dead. Other birds have returned with no additional messages. Tywin thinks the Night's Watch might be useful if led by the right man, and Grand Maester Pycelle suggests one Janos Slynt. He commands Pycelle to craft a letter saying King Joffrey can't spare the men right now. However, he sends his best to his dear friend, Lord Janos Slynt.
Yeah, not to dwell on my namesake, but singing that song to Tyrion,
I know.
I mean, you might as well just be wrapping a noose around your neck. I mean,
right. I'm just gonna put on these concrete shoes and go jump in the harbor.
I'm gonna stand right on the edge,
Yes, right.
Yeah,
wearing
crazy.
concrete shoes. See if anybody pushes me in, possibly.
Yeah.
But so we mentioned very early in the summary, and I kept asking Simon if I thought I needed to reiterate what I was referring to when I said damages.
Question, listener. What damage was Tyrion inspecting? He was inspecting the damage to the harbour and the walls, right?
Yes, right.
I remember.
So,
and if I remember, they can remember.
Right. Yes, that seems to make sense. But so when he's out there, he's out among the masses, and he's thinking that no one's going to touch him because he's riding along with Bronn. However, he feels like if he was riding by himself, the masses would pull him down and beat him over the head with a cobblestone like they did for Preston Greenfield. So you can see that the trauma of the riot is still weighing on his mind and affecting him.
But I think he's a little bit... I mean, obviously, he's a bit of an egomaniac, Tyrion. And so he thinks the world revolves around him. I don't think he's right in this. The riot that cost Preston Greenfield his head was because the people were starving. The Tyrells have basically lifted the siege of King's Landing, and now there's food again. They don't like Tyrion, but they're not going to riot while they're not hungry.
I agree with most of that. Yes, I agree. I don't think a riot is imminent, although Tyrion does mention that despite the Tyrells bringing in food on Marjorie's behalf, there's still outrageous inflation going on with what food is available. So there's probably a lot of people that can't afford to buy the incredibly overpriced food that are angry and bitter. And probably a lot of people that lost their hovels that he tore down off of the outside of the walls.
Yeah.
And he told Bronn, Tyrion says they swarm in faster than the rats. And Bronn says if you kill them, they won't swarm back in. And Tyrion says, don't do that. But if they start building stuff up against the walls, tear that down immediately. So, yeah. But in a kind of surprising departure from the typical Lannister mindset, Tyrion thinks to himself, well, I burned most of this. It's only just that I should rebuild it. And,
I don't think he meant it, though. I think what he would much rather happen is Kevin Lannister was get out of his crying fit and come and deal
right.
with this stuff.
Yeah, it's certainly been a rough go for Kevin.
Yeah.
He's his oldest son, Lancel, you mentioned in the summary, but just to remind everyone, his oldest son, Lancel, is unable to recover from the injuries from the Battle of the Blackwater, which he seemed to be recovering from fine until Cersei dug her fingers into his injury, and now he can't recover from it. But on top of that, one of his younger twin boys, Willem, we know was murdered by Rickard Karstark along with Tion Frey.
And the twin brother is still in the hands of the Starks, and therefore, presumably, now you're much more worried about their safety than you would have been had his twin not been murdered.
Right. Yes, his twin brother Martin is still captive of Robb Stark, which would, although, he received a letter from Riverrun saying your son has died, and probably saying I put Rickard Karstark to death for the action, and maybe even I express my condolences or something like that. But it still would make you rather uneasy that your other son is in the same.
Do you think that they did say that? I don't think we know the contents of that letter, do we? I mean, you're just speculating there. Do you think that you would have said the thing about Rickard Karstark, because that's revelatory as to the state of your alliance? And I wonder if you might keep that from the Lannisters.
That's a good point. I think in that Cat chapter, Robb told Cat that he was going to have to write a letter to King's Landing, informing them of Willem's death. I don't think he mentioned what he was going to say, but yes, that's a good point. You could,
Yeah.
if you were Tywin, you could infer from that, oh, there is discord between the Starks
Yeah.
and the Karstarks. I wonder if I can use that to my advantage.
But maybe if Rob was thinking carefully, what he might say is, he was murdered by my bannermen. They were angry about an unrelated thing, and they took it out on Willem. They have been punished and put to death for their crimes. The perpetrators. You don't even have to say who it is. It could just be some foot soldiers.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that would be the probably wiser way to go about it.
Yeah, I do wonder actually. So it's interesting to me that Tywin is so forgiving of Kevin's behavior here. Because Tywin seems to me to be all business, he didn't seem to care that Tyrion was injured. He doesn't seem that bothered that Jaime's been captured. He seems quite, it's always
stoic.
business for him.
Right.
And for Kevin to sort of withdraw from his chores just because he's sad about his sons, I'm surprised that Tywin is tolerating that.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Yeah, I had not thought about that, but yeah.
He must be very fond of him, I think.
Right. He is his right-hand man. So
Yeah.
I guess, in a lot of ways, he's the one person that he feels he can truly rely on. Certainly he doesn't think of it's Cersei or Tyrion, because they both tend to vex him greatly.
Yes.
But yes, you're right. It is a little bit surprising that Tywin was understanding enough to be like, no, you take the time you need to grieve.
Right.
We've got this.
It shows a slight softness to Tywin that I haven't noticed anywhere else in any other sphere of his existence.
Yeah. So, but like you said, Tyrion's been given the task that Kevin was supposed to handle. And I was thinking, oh, lucky Tyrion. It's quite a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, Tyrion thinks his father is giving him meaningful work. However, on the other hand, it's a bit of an impossible task that he is being asked to do. And if it fails, previously it would have fallen on Kevin's shoulders. Now it'll fall squarely on Tyrion's shoulders. And Tyrion's thoughts are that the cost will be ruinous. And then when he brings it up later to his father, that he has no way of paying for this. They don't have the crown doesn't have the gold. Tywin says, well, you better, or I'll find someone that can pay for it. So I wonder if that's why Kevin was like, oh, I just can't take on this task.
Having reviewed my list, I'm reminded that my son recently died. I will say when we get to pedantry, I have some suggestions for Tyrion for how that he might pay for this.
Okay. I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
So, Sansa's feelings towards their marriage haven't improved since the last Sansa chapter. Not entirely surprisingly. But again, I'm going to keep that little flame alive that they could become a really wonderful couple. The dream that Tyrion has here in this chapter of, all the things that they could do together, and the love that might grow between them. She just has to let go of her fantasies, her childish fantasies. Now, he's being respectful towards her, and I hope he continues to be for another 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And then they can become that couple. This is my hope for them both.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think that it's quite as dire as Tyrion thinks it is. Tyrion uses the word hate. He thinks that his wife hates him. We have the luxury of knowing her inner thoughts because she is a POV character, and we know she doesn't hate Tyrion. She's a young woman who's been on a wild roller coaster of life ever since she left Winterfell. She grew up dreaming of gallant knights and charming princes, and she thought she was marrying her dream husband only to discover that he was a monster. And then she let herself believe she might actually reach those dreams, after all, with Willis Tyrell, only to marry against her will someone that she doesn't find appealing in any of the traditional ways.
Yeah.
And so, she's in a rough place, and Tyrion is the one left standing to represent all that she's lost since leaving Winterfell.
Yeah.
But I agree with everything that you have said. I think Tyrion, he doesn't get her inner thoughts like we do.
I will say, you're absolutely right. Her innermost thoughts do reveal that she is grateful to Tyrion for the various things that he's done for her.
Right.
But she just doesn't seem to be able to... I mean, some of it is she's built walls to defend herself because of the horrors that she's suffered. And she refuses to let him through those walls because he is a Lannister. And the Lannisters are the perpetrators of these horrors. And she can't, even though he's been nice to her, even though he's defended her, even though he's been a protector to her, she won't let those walls down until she's absolutely sure. I just hope that she's willing to do it one day. That's the thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you'd like to hope that will happen. But in the meantime, Tyrion wonders if Sansa's shared them not consummating their marriage with her bedmaids, who are all surely loyal to Cersei, or if it's Varys's little birds having picked up on this information. And
let me speculate on that, if I might.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say that Sansa's not going to tell anyone. The last thing Sansa would want, because Sansa can figure this out herself. The powers that be want this marriage consummated. She and Tyrion don't. Why spread the word that it isn't consummated?
So you think it's the birds? Do you think it's Varys?
Yeah, I absolutely think it must be the birds.
Oh.
Or the handmaids have figured it out themselves. Sansa's not the source of this. Sansa's not the one telling everyone. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I definitely wouldn't think it's Sansa telling everyone. My thought was that the fact that half the castle knows makes me think it's Cersei, not Varys. Because it's not necessarily how Varys disseminates info, unless his plan was to discredit Tyrion by ridicule for some long game plan he's playing here.
And of course, Sansa could be duped into it by a cunning handmaid. If a handmaid said, well, what's he like in bed, if you know what I mean?
Yes.
She might say, oh my God, no.
Well, one thing we know about Sansa is she keeps her lips tight when it comes to revealing information.
No mistakes there. I do have to say, I think that Tyrion is being outplayed by characters like Littlefinger here, because Littlefinger, if he was in Tyrion's shoes here, he would be on the offense. He would be rolling out a counter narrative to the story that's going around, and the beauty of that is you could get Sansa to play into it, because if Tyrion and Sansa hatched a plot to say, "Oh, we've consummated the marriage," often. Then
that's that makes sense.
They would totally, that word would get out, and then the other story dies on the vine,
Yeah, if he explained to Sansa the reason why they need to pretend,
which she doesn't really need explained to her, I would think. But yeah, absolutely.
But if you need to, explain. This is going to be a forced situation if we don't say that it's happened. So I need you to go along with this plan.
Exactly. You have two choices: do this or say you did this.
Right? Yes. Yeah. We've often talked that Tyrion is not the best PR guy.
Yeah.
his PR game is a little on the weaker side.
Yeah.
But and then later, he's thinking about the fact that Tywin has gotten this knowledge. Tywin knows that they haven't consummated their marriage, and he's wondering what he asks Tywin, was it my sister that I have to thank for this, or has a little spider been whispering to you? And Tyrion thinks to himself, he doesn't say this out loud, but that with all the things that have gone on beneath Cersei's blankets, you'd think she'd have the decency to keep her nose out of what's going on in my marital bed.
Mm-hmm.
And it just got me thinking. We obviously know of Jaime, and we know of Lancel, but Lancel's been injured since the battle and can't leave his sickbed. And I just wonder, the way he phrased that, of all the things that have gone on beneath Cersei's blankets, are there others as well?
Well, yeah. It does suggest that. I mean, there was presumably Robert Baratheon occasionally.
Occasionally.
Not often, but yeah.
Right.
So she's definitely got more experience than Jaime, that's for sure. But
right, but that one was he was her king and her husband, and that was expected. Jaime,
I'm not slut shaming here. I'm simply listing.
No, I just mean, so if this is the case, if what he's saying is what we're indicating he's saying, it just reminds you of how different the twins are. Jaime's only been with Cersei. He told Brienne he only wants to be with Cersei, and if this may be indicating more sword activity in Cersei's bedchamber, it would indicate she's clearly of a different mindset than Jaime.
Cersei's made that point before, that she doesn't have the outlets that Jaime, for instance, has to express her power. Her power can't be expressed by arms, but it can be expressed by manipulating people, and that sometimes requires her feminine wiles to come to play. The one example that I thought of there was the Kettle Blacks. Weren't the Kettle Blacks? Didn't Tyrion suspect that she might be doing something with the Kettle Blacks?
Yeah, what you're thinking of is Varys, when they met in Varys' chamber, I believe is where the conversation happened. Varys suggested that Cersei had offerings for Osmond Kettleblack that Tyrion can't match.
Right.
Which was, suggesting that she is offering sexual activity that Tyrion is not capable of matching.
Right. Yes. So yeah, I mean, yeah, she and Jaime are different, but she is confined by her gender to certain things that she can do. And
true.
She is trying to use some of those to her advantage. Most of them are disadvantageous to her.
Right.
So, support Cersei in this. So Tyrion has done the honourable thing, not touching Sansa until she wants him to. He is risking never touching Sansa, and also he's certainly risking the ire of his father. And of course, the fact that this has all gotten out, he's more of a laughingstock than ever. And so, there's a sense of no good deed going unpunished here. The more honourable he is, the more he's treated as a fool and with contempt.
That no deed going unpunished is the same thought that came to my mind when I thought of him thinking about this. What all this makes me think of is him back in Shea's bed, a while back in Clash of Kings, I think it was, when he was laying there in her bed and he was thinking about the power, the title, the girl, how he had it all. And at the time, we were worried that he was forgetting that the title was temporary, as was the power, and that there's a highly likely chance that the girl is a performance done for his behalf.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yes. Certainly in this chapter he's revealing... There is a revelation to me in this chapter, which is Tyrion wants Sansa. He wants Sansa in a way that makes you think. It sounds like he wants Sansa, and there would be no room for anyone else. There would be no room for a Shea in that situation. If he were to get there. He's not sure he's going to get there, but he'd like to get there, it seems. And then where does that leave Shea? On the outs for sure. Now, Shea's attitude seems sensible and possibly logical in that Sansa is rejecting him, and therefore he's going to come back to Shea. But long term, that might not be viable.
Yeah, I'd like to think that Tyrion would be all in if Sansa was willing, as he suggests he's all in. He thinks to himself, I want her, and he lists all the ways, not just I want her in a sexual way, or I want her for her claim to Winterfell, but to laugh and to cry and to share successes and failures and all the things. But, it seems like the ball rests in Sansa's court here.
Yeah, that's very true. Because Tyrion and Shea are both sort of in stasis, waiting for Sansa to change. Their stasis brings them together because they are in love with each other. And I know you and I have a slightly different opinion of this. I think we both think Tyrion's pretty much in love with Shea.
Yes.
But I will say this chapter has made me realize that his love is kind of boxed. It's not infinite.
Right.
He's willing to walk away. But I actually believe that Shea has fallen in love with Tyrion. And I think you still see her as being
an actor
more cold and calculating than that.
Yes, I know. It's very cynical of me, isn't it?
It is. Here's my argument for why I think Shea's fallen in love with Tyrion. She does, in her profession, she plays the part and she makes the guy believe that she's falling in love with him. I get that. But she has found one of the richest men in the Seven Kingdoms. And she's not obviously repulsed by him, as many women, for instance, Sansa Stark, are. And he has fallen madly in love with her because she's not repulsed by him and willing to sleep with him. And he's good to her. He's kind to her. He's looked after her. What is love? Love is that kind of thing, Even if your motives going into it weren't to fall in love, doesn't mean you haven't fallen in love. Now, she's probably still got a tough enough shell that if he goes off with Sansa Stark and never comes back, she'll bounce back from it. But I honestly believe that she is in love with Tyrion almost as much as he is with her.
Because of the things he provides, because of the life he can provide, not necessarily.
But you're making it sound like it's purely transactional. She wants a happy life, right? She wants like anyone. She wants a comfortable life, and he offers a way to that. And he's good to her. So, and they have fun together.
Yeah. I guess you just don't, because we don't have a Shea POV, which would be fantastic to get a look inside her head and what she's really thinking about Tyrion. It's a matter of whether she is looking at him as her meal ticket and willing to play the part as much as she needs to in order to take advantage of that meal ticket, or if Tyrion was exiled from the Lannister family, would she stay with him if he was just Tyrion, the guy he is, the kind guy that loves her,
right?
That's good to her and loves her.
A lot of men and women who are not prostitutes make a similar calculation, before they settle down with someone.
That is true. Absolutely, you got to factor that in. Yeah, absolutely.
I think as a prostitute, she is just more. That is more to the fore of her mind. There is more of a calculating layer to her than there would be to a non-prostitute, perhaps.
Yeah. You make solid points. It's really not possible to know without getting into her head.
But the thing is, of course, marriage is transactional, you know? Especially when there's a financial imbalance between the two. It's inevitably transactional. If one person is richer than the other, then that poorer person is getting financial leg up by marrying that person. And is that in their mind? Yeah, it's in their mind. It may not be the driver, but it's in their mind.
Anyway, we've dwelled on Tyrion and Shea long enough. We've got other topics to cover.
Yeah. So as you said, there's still some food shortages. The Tyrells have bring in food from the Reach on Marjorie's behalf. The city's overcrowded, both because of the war in the Riverlands and, of course, the local environs have been sort of destroyed, so people have moved into the city. People can't return home. It's too dangerous to go back out there, and Tywin should look at his own scorched earth policy here as a sort of perhaps one of the reasons why. It certainly helped the Tyrells financially because they're the only people with a decent harvest around here now, so they can really make some money. This whole thing about the rampant inflation, well, the people who are getting rich off this are the Tyrells. But there's a limit to inflation, right? Because if nobody can buy bread, then it brings the price down, you know?
Right.
Inflation can't just keep going, you know?
I'd like to hope so. I feel like I get poorer by the day, so I'd like to hope that it ends at some point. And we talked about it earlier. I don't think that we're in store for a riot, and not entirely just because the city is more well-fed, but also because Tywin's in control. Right. That makes a difference. Yeah. So Tyrion then pays a visit to Symon Silver Tongue. When Tyrion met Shea in Varys' chamber, she mentioned advising Tander Stokeworth to hire him to play to help soothe Lollys. Yeah, remember, he was the one that filled Shea's head with the wonders at the wedding feast, and then she asked Tyrion if she could go because it sounded so wonderful, and Tyrion was thinking, oh, this Symon Silver Tongue, I owe him in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of that chapter, Tyrion tells Bronn, go find Symon Silver Tongue before somebody else does. Yeah. So, you know... Well, go. Yeah, go on. Well, I was just going to say, to me it seems like you are in a position, Symon Silvertongue, to extort some money out of Tyrion Lannister. But you've got to realise that the amount of money you can extort from him is only so big before it moves over into, I'm going to kill you. Yeah. And it's not a very big pile of money. And a pile of money enough to get me 9 dates in Essos, that's pretty good. I'll take that, you know? Right. Yeah, so what happens is Tyrion, like we said in the summary, suggests Symon Silvertongue go off to Essos for 9 years, a year in each of the 9 free cities. And Symon says, oh, but you've never heard me sing. And he sings the song that we mentioned. And before he says that, before he starts singing his song, Tyrion reaches into the folds of his cloak and reaches for the bag of gold coins, gold dragons that he has. And then as soon as Symon starts singing, he takes his hand back out without the gold. Right. So it's pretty clear that he meant what he was originally offering. I will pay you to go away. Right. You could live pretty well off of the 30-some golden dragons I was going to give you. Right, exactly. You were going to become rich and you were going to be, have a new start somewhere. But now, as soon as you did that, you went from being someone I can pay off to someone I have to kill. Yeah. And you know what? He probably hasn't seen TV shows like we have. He doesn't know. Yeah, he got too greedy. He clearly underestimated Tyrion's capacity to do him harm. And I don't know, maybe I'm not looking at it the right way. He didn't sing us the whole song, but it was odd that Symon thought he had the upper hand with the little leverage that he had. When you think about it, what's the big threat to to sing a song to a group of ruffians in a wine sink, okay, maybe that gets back to Cersei and Tywin eventually, but compare that to Tyrion's ability to make you dead at any moment. It's pretty small potatoes.
Yeah. Horrible miscalculation by Symon, and I believe we've seen the last of him. I really like the fact that Bronn is to go back to tell him, oh, we've got you a place at the wedding. You can be one of the 9 singers. Oh, and by the way...
Yes.
As if you need a cover story for that.
He did as he promised. He said, on my word as a Lannister, Bronn will call on you.
Yes, indeed. So Tyrion next goes to Tywin, and Tywin's examining 2 Valyrian steel swords. Now, the Lannisters for years have coveted a Valyrian steel sword. They've tried to buy them from people, as I understand it, and never been able to. Now they've got 2.
Right.
One's for Joffrey, the smaller one, and then one is for my son, which is a charming thing to say to your other son.
Yes.
As always, Tywin.
I like that phrasing. Yeah, so I think the first question that, is that comes to mind here is, where did Tywin get the steel for these swords?
Because it's not easy to come by. Yes.
Yes, and we know that they weren't established. These swords didn't exist previously because, first of all, the armorer, who happens to be Tobo Mott, Gendry's former master, he is making they're working on finishing up these swords, and he's explaining how he tried to use this red dye that didn't take very well. And when Tyrion says, "Oh, I see, a sword for Joff, a sword for Jaime, and not even a dagger for the dwarf," Tywin's response is, "There was only enough steel for 2 swords. If you want a dagger, go to the armory and get yourself one."
Right.
So
it's come from somewhere. It's not easy to buy. It's impossible to buy. For generations, they've wanted one of these. So the only thing I can think of, and I don't know if this is a spoiler, but where is Ned Stark's sword Ice?
Well, last we saw, the headsman, Sir Illian Payne, was running around with it.
Didn't he use it on Ned himself?
He did use it on Ned himself, yes.
There you are. Okay. And it was a big sword, so it might even have enough Valyrian steel for 2 swords.
It's possible. That is certainly one of the options.
Well, that's not very nice, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all. And, well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we don't know for a fact that's it, but that's the logical conclusion here.
Right. And I will say that Mott, Tobo Mott, he is Cahoric, like Vargo Hoat.
Yep.
But it seems, based on the dialogue here, that Hoat's lisp isn't simply a speech style of the Cahoric, because Tobo Mott does not. Of course, they were talking about rubies, not sapphires, so we never got to fully test it 1-to-1, but it doesn't seem like it. And also Tyrion mentions that this sword, the first sword he sees, is Joff's, and he says that is much too much sword for Joff. And I was thinking, no doubt. What are the chances by the end of the week after Joff's wedding, either him or some random person hasn't lost an appendage? Joff wielding that sword around.
Yes. Tyrion wonders if Jaime will ever live to see the sword. Tywin must think so. Is it just wishful thinking, or does he have some intel? Does he know that Jaime's in the wind?
So yeah, that's a good question. Does Tywin know? We know the word is starting to spread throughout the Riverland, so it's not unheard of for the word to have made it all the way to King's Landing, but he doesn't mention the news to Tyrion. And despite his clear dislike for Tyrion, he does let him in on most of the news. He tells him about Mace Tyrell rejecting the Cersei Willis betrothal, and he starts to talk about other ideas he has for Cersei's marriage when Grand Maester Pycelle comes in, and he lets Tyrion stay to hear about what's going on at Castle Black and what they want. So he does let him stay in the know. So you'd think if he had heard that Jaime is on the loose, he would say something, mention it to him.
Yep. So the Cersei Willis' wedding does not appear to be going to happen.
Nope.
It's been rejected by Mace Tyrell. But Tyrion thinks that was probably Olenna Tyrell. Or was it Tywin that thinks that? Who thinks?
Tywin.
It's Tywin who thinks Olenna's behind that, right?
Yep. Yeah, so he thinks that... He says Mace was kind of cool with the idea. He liked the idea of this betrothal when Tywin proposed it to him, and then the next day came back and said, no, this isn't going to work. And Tywin is pretty sure that Olenna Tyrell was the culprit behind the change of mind. And he tells Tyrion it's best not to tell Cersei that there was ever an offer made. And there is some sense to that. She knows of the Willis Sansa plot that the Tyrells thought that Sansa was worthy enough to marry Willis, but Cersei is not. And, if she were to learn that, might she hold it against Sansa, take it out on Sansa? That's, she's...
I had no idea who you were going to suggest there. I never even thought of Sansa as being the... But now you've said it, yes, she would blame Sansa, you're right.
If she found this out, even though she doesn't want to marry Willis Tyrell, she couldn't help but probably be, kind of hurt by it. So that you've got a stung, angry, axe to grind Cersei. That's a rather dangerous.
But that's kind of her default, right?
True. But,
She's got an axe to grind. It's just a different axe.
You also wonder if maybe Tywin was saying, do not tell her that this offer was ever made, because he's afraid she might poison the Tyrell alliance.
Yeah, true enough, yeah. So who might she get married off to? Because Tywin was about to talk about that when Grand Maester Pycelle arrived on the scene. So we don't know who he was going to say.
Right. All he said was, I have some ideas.
Yeah, so...
last chapter, though, he mentioned a few names.
Oh, that's right.
After that small council meeting.
Who did he mention?
He mentioned Oberyn Martell, who's the younger brother of Prince Doran Martell. Uh-huh. He mentioned Horror and Slobber Redwine. And he mentioned possibly Theon or Balon Greyjoy. And I think it was Tyrion described Cersei's lips as going white or something like that. The news of possibly Balon Greyjoy being her future husband.
Yeah.
So but, Tyrion... speaking of Olenna, though, Sansa has told Olenna and Marjorie how horrible Joffrey is, and it would not be too hard to deduce that Cersei might be cut from a similar cloth. So
True. The apples don't often fall far from the tree.
Right.
Especially when the tree is married to its twin.
Right, exactly.
So Tyrion expresses quite a bit of concern about paying for the repairs. Tywin doesn't want to hear it. He just wants someone to solve the problems. There's plenty of money. He should be able to do it. I will say, actually, that there are some... Well, like I say, I'll delay it until we get to pedantry, because I think it's worthy of pedantry, what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Because there's things you shouldn't be paying for at this point.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Littlefinger did mention way back in an early Ned chapter in A Game of Thrones. It was actually the first thing he did when he got to King's Landing, Ned. He went to the small council meeting where Littlefinger mentioned that the crown is 6 million gold dragons in debt, 3 million, not 3 gold dragons, but 3 million gold dragons of that was to the Lannisters. And Tyrion says, are you willing to forgive the crown's debts? And Tywin says, don't be ridiculous.
Right.
So some of the other sources of debt that Littlefinger mentions are the Tyrells, the Iron Bank of Braavos, some Tyroshi trading cartels, and the Faith themselves that he's borrowed from. So,
there's nobody left to borrow from.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I was thinking there might have been some kind of knowledge transfer between Littlefinger and Tyrion when Tyrion took over as Master of Coin that explained some of this. But then, maybe Littlefinger doesn't want to reveal the mess he's allowed the finances to become. So, but then, Tyrion says, you add the chain, the wildfire, and the wedding to the costs, and there's just no money left.
Yeah. So Tywin brings up the consummation of the marriage. Tyrion argues that she's too young. Tywin says she's old enough to be the Lady of Winterfell if we get rid of Robb Stark, so you need to get busy, because basically if she's pregnant, you are the Lord of Winterfell.
Right.
And that's a result for the Lannisters, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think of how much that would expand their power in the realm.
Exactly, yeah.
They'd almost have a stranglehold on the realm. They'd have the North, the West, the Crown Lands, and the Reach to a certain extent.
Yeah, and even the Vale if Littlefinger comes through.
Right. Yeah. They would secure it.
Yeah.
That all, of course, is if Robb Stark dies.
Right.
Yeah. Tywin keeps saying she's the Lady of Winterfell if her brother dies.
Right. But you've got to say that the end game here is Robb dying or Joffrey dying.
Right.
It's hard to imagine them both coming out of this safe and sound.
Yes, that is true.
You play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die, I believe.
Good point.
Yeah. There's a letter from Castle Black asking for help. The wildlings are moving south in vast numbers, as we know. No mention of the others. And that makes Tywin unconcerned. Yeah?
Yeah, you could understand that.
I could totally
understand that. What does Tywin care that there's wildlings moving south in vast numbers, So what? They'll run into the 700-foot wall.
Right. Why do you need my soldiers? I'm in the middle of a war.
Yes, exactly.
The birds returning to Castle Black without letters have put everyone on alert up there. They're expecting an attack. But no one's going to listen to the problems of the Night's Watch. But they do hatch an interesting plan of putting a loyalist of theirs. I'm not sure how loyal he's going to be to Tyrion, but a loyalist of theirs in charge of the Night's Watch, if Lord Commander Mormont has died, which appears to be the concern.
That exactly, yes. Tywin, ever the opportunist, sees a chance to add yet another entity to his payroll here under his thumb.
He'll marry Marcella off to Mance Rayder and complete the whole set.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe that's who he can marry Cersei off to.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Marcella's supposed to bring Dorne into the fold.
That's
Cersei's still wild card here. Yeah. He's got to figure out where best to point her. But I will say about this letter that is sent from Bowen Marsh, who's the Castellan right now at Castle Black. Grand Maester Pycelle mentions that the letter references that it's gone out to all 5 kings.
Yes.
And I thought maybe want to tailor each letter to that specific king, So I wondered if maybe Maester Aemon was not proofreading this, or who put this letter together. But it seems like a rather fatal flaw to mention all 5 kings in one letter.
The worst mistake was Joffrey was on the 2 line, and all the other kings were on the CC line. It's like, come on!
Oh. But yes, back to Slint. Tyrion thinks it's a terrible idea, but it's actually Grand Maester Pycelle who mentioned it because he's got an axe to grind with Tyrion. So
borrowing it from Cersei.
Yes, but anyway, of these kings, of the 5 kings, there's really only Joffrey that is likely to respond because one, Renly's dead, so he's not going to respond. Although the ghost of Renly Baratheon was out on the battlefield in the Battle of the Blackwater, so
true.
Maybe that
respond.
Yes, it's unlikely that Balon Greyjoy is going to respond. I mean, it's unlikely he even cares, even though Cotter Pike, the commander of the Eastwatch by the Sea, is Ironborn.
Right.
I don't really think that would factor a lot into Balon Swan deciding to bail out the Night's Watch. Stannis is already on the brink of destruction.
Yeah.
He's lost his whole fleet. He's clinging by his fingertips.
You know who Robb could send? He could send the Rickard Karstark and the other murderers.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wait.
Great. No,
he can't.
No, that's not going to work. Yeah, so we don't know how much Bowen Marsh knows about what's going on with the North, but if he sent a letter to Winterfell, he's going to be returned to sender because there's nobody home. If he sent it to Riverrun, if he knows Rob's in Riverrun, Rob can't get back north to help even if he wanted to.
Good point. Well, do you have some background for us, Mackelly?
I do have a bit of background. Today, we are going to talk about the Lion King. No, not Simba or Mufasa for that matter. Rather, King Tommen II Lannister, who was nicknamed the Lion King. Oh. He was the king of the Rock in the days prior to Aegon's conquest. And Tyrion, in this chapter, Tyrion thinks of him when thinking of the previous Lannister Valyrian steel sword Brightroar. And as Tyrion tells us in this chapter, the sword was lost when King Tommen took it with him on his journey to Valyria to find the wealth and sorcery he thought would be waiting for him within the smoking ruins. So, what happened to King Tommen? Well, Tyrion tells us that he was never seen from again, and that is true. However, there were some reports of Tommen's fleet as it made its way to Valyria. According to a Valentine chronicle called The Glory of Volantis, his fleet stopped in Volantis for supplies. There, he was showered with gifts from the Triarchs who run the city. King Tommen II promised that when he returned from Valyria, half of all that he recovered would be given to the Triarchs for their support, as well as sending in their fleet to aid him if needed. The following year, Triarch Marcello Tagaros sent ships in the direction the king would have taken on his way to Valyria, looking for signs of the Lannister fleet. However, nothing was ever seen again from the fleet or King Tommen II Lannister.
So, we'll expect to see them in the Winds of Winter then, presumably.
Yes.
Okay. Comparison with the television show, most of this is dropped. Symon Silver Tongue is completely dropped. The two Valyrian swords are deferred for a whole season. There's a whole season will go by before those swords appear.
Okay.
The only bit that really survived is Tyrion's money worries, and the show brought that out in a scene, not with Tyrion and Tywin, but with Tyrion and Olenna Tyrell. Getting Diana Rigg more screen time, yeah.
Yes.
And basically, he's saying, let's pare down the wedding, and she's saying, no. The only reason the peasants don't throw us, don't overthrow us is because we do a bit of pageantry. But she agrees to pay half the costs of the wedding. But she absolutely outplays Tyrion at every point of that conversation. She outplays him, and he's left utterly bemused when she goes. So.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Pedantry Corner. How much do you have to pay these pyromancers? I get paying workmen to do work as they're doing it, but once they've done it, if you're the Lannisters who always pay their debts, stop paying them. They only needed money to do it. Once they did it, you don't have to keep giving them money anymore. Set them up. Give them a royal warrant to be the pyromancers for all eternity. Give Helene, a manse somewhere and enough money to live on. And that's it. That's all you need. You stop. I don't understand why there's a huge debt. Ditto the chain. The chain, all they needed was the money to buy the metal and then payment for making the chain. You shouldn't be in huge debt over this. I don't understand it.
Could it be that they are making payments instead of lump sum, making recurring payments instead of one lump sum payment?
Well, clearly, but if I'm the chain maker or Helene, I don't accept that. The reason I want payment for this is because I got to pay these people. Yeah, I need it up front, my friend. And secondly, default on those payments. The realm is in tatters. You have no money.
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. What are they going to do if you?
What are they going to do exactly?
Well, you have to defer this payment until the realm gets in better.
Exactly. I just
straight.
Yeah, there's no two ways about it. I just don't understand why you would even worry about those debts when you've got things you have to pay to happen now. You pay for those now and worry about the debts tomorrow.
And you have more pressing debts like, to the Iron Bank and to the Faith and things, entities that could affect you more negatively.
Exactly. That could actually put a squeeze on you. Yes,
right.
For sure. News and notes.
Well, it wasn't a very news-heavy day out there in the A Song of Ice and Fire world, or week, I should say.
I disagree because of what I see written on this sheet.
Yes. So let's talk about GOH news. I don't know if everyone has gone out and looked. I put it on all of our social medias, but we have a beautifully designed new shirt that was designed by the incredibly talented artist, Jenny of Old Stones. Yes, round of applause for Jenny. I was very impressed. It is her first effort that she has produced of GOH artwork, and it's very cool.
It's beautiful. I'm definitely getting myself a copy of that one. It's really nice.
Yes, and it's out there on our Threadless site, so go check it out. It's in t-shirt form only right now, but I'll look to expand it to sweatshirts and other things as I get time to.
And we got a review on Apple Podcasts by Angry Johnny's Running Buddy, which it was entitled "Hour of Joy."
Not to be confused with the Tower of Joy.
Not the Tower. Yes, I know. I like the pun he made.
Yes.
Well, or she made. I mean, Johnny sounds like a fella, but Angry Johnny's Running Buddy could be a lady. So
that's true.
Just discovered these wonderful guys in a moment when I was hoping against hope that George Martin is going to finish The Winds of Winter. This podcast is a perfect and eminently interesting, in quotes, way to fill the time while we wait. The two hosts brings much joy to it, and their genuine respect for and friendship with each other makes it an enjoyable listen through and through. If you've already read the books or seen the show, it's particularly funny to hear them dance around potential spoilers which they strive not to reveal. Thankful that these guys have seen fit to put this much time into the project, and hope that all their apparent love for the work inspires George Martin to finish the story that has brought so much joy to so many of us. Yes, can you imagine, Mackelly, if we were to influence George Martin?
We were the influential force behind Winds of Winter.
Poor guys making that podcast. I should really finish this book.
Well, I'd like him to put that at the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
I was really struggling.
Yeah. To Mackelly and Simon.
Yes. Thank you for being the inspiration behind finishing this thing.
and to Angry Johnny's Running Buddy for bringing it to my attention.
Right.
Well, Angry Johnny's Running Buddy, thank you. That's very, very kind review, and we appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so very much.
Yeah. So let's conclude finally. It's nice for Tyrion to be doing something useful. This is definitely playing to his strengths. You got to give him a meaty task to set his teeth on, and he will go at it, like the sewers in Casterly Rock.
Yeah, Tyrion he's a very capable person when given a task, and he takes his tasks seriously, so it is good to see him be given a true useful task here, even though it does also feel a bit like Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Come up with the funds to rebuild. Right. Redirect those funds elsewhere.
Yeah. It's not so nice for Tyrion that he needs Bronn as a bodyguard at all times, especially when it was largely he that saved the city. Bunch of ingrates.
Well, true. Although he was also the one that tore down all the lean-tos that have been put up against the outer part of the wall. You're
gonna make an omelet.
That's true. That's true. A few eggs might not make it through that process.
And as I said, it is sad for Kevin, but I do find his unable to function due to grief a little bit odd that Tywin swallows it. He must be awfully fond of him. Tywin would not tolerate that from anyone else that I can think of.
No, especially not the replacement.
Right, his
person.
Children. He would not tolerate it from. Yeah.
Exactly. But we spent a lot of time discussing Sansa and Tyrion's marriage, and how do they come together to coexist as a married couple? Is there any chance of success with the specter of Shea hanging around them? Yeah. Anytime there's discord between the two of them, is Tyrion going to run off to Shea? I will say he was upfront about it when he told her he wouldn't touch her till she wanted, and she said, "What if that's never?" He said, that's why God made whores for dwarfs like me, or something like that. But it would be nice, as you said, they could come together to make a really smart couple if both parties were willing to put in the effort.
Or possibly a power throuple.
bring Shea in? Well,
All right, let me set it out for you, Tyrion. Okay, I, Sansa Stark, am willing to commit to this marriage, but we're not doing that. I'm just telling you. Now, Shea, I like. Bring her in. She takes care of that.
Yeah, sure.
Everything works.
Yeah, I get it. I see how the pieces fit together here.
Yeah, and the Lannisters have finally got their hands on Valyrian steel swords. Some boon of victory from the Battle of the Blackwater. Can't imagine there were too many Valyrian steel swords flashing around there.
Yeah, Tyrion mentions that there's as many as 200 swords still in the realm. Maybe one of the lesser houses that they had tried to buy their swords before, now they've basically just taken it. Or another option, which you pointed out, is Sir Illiam Payne, the headsman, is running around with one of the largest, rarest swords in all the realm. Is that possible that maybe Tywin said, "Give me that thing. What are you doing running around with that?"
But the flip side of that is, I mean, it's just absolutely the final disrespect to the Starks, if that's what you've done. I mean, now you're going to have to fight the Starks until they're all gone. There's no more. Right. There's no possible conciliation. If you've melted down ice, that's too much.
That's a lot. Much. It's definitely.
Who've we got next time?
Well, next we are off to visit Sam north of the
Samwell
wall.
Tarly?
Samwell Tarly, right. Oh. So, we'll get an idea of whether Lord Commander Mormont is alive or dead, and whether Jaina Slynt might be
God help us.
There might be an opening for Lord Jaina Slynt to step into. We will see, I guess.
Well, good. There are 3 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a review. You could buy some merchandise, including the lovely new shirt that was designed by our very own Jenny of Oldstones at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. Or you could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal, where you could become a sustainer at the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm level and get lots of lovely benefits.
That's right. And of course, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com, but we'd also love if you go out and follow us on our social medias on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Please come join the conversation on Discord. We have a lot of fun there. And don't forget, please go subscribe and listen to our YouTube channel.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.